All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Google Drawings across the content area session. I'm going to turn off my video despite May the 4th-ness. We have lots to do in this session. There are a number of explorations across content areas that we can explore with Google Drawings. But to start this session, we'll of course talk about the features of Google Drawings and how I feel Drawings is really one of the most underutilized of all the Google platform offerings. So there are some really unique things being done. My name is Lyn Hilt. I'm from the BCIU in the Office of Professional Development and Curriculum. And if you have any questions following this session, please reach out, lynhilt@berksiu.org. So we're going to discuss why Google Drawings, what some of the great key features are, and then talk about drawings for literacy, in math, in the sciences, and then also some creative uses of Google Drawings in lots of different spaces that I think pretty much anyone can find a use for, whether for your own organization and instructional use or for students to use to create as well. So why is Google Drawings so fun? It is quite the versatile tool. You can use it for things like brainstorming, diagramming, note-taking. Of course, you can use it to build and create and design. And there, like I've said, there are many clever things that are being shared by educators from around the world that you can get some ideas from today. And I have included a lot of that in our slides. And interacting, an outside of the box thinking of ways to use Google Drawings include things like virtual manipulatives. So you can use Google Drawings as a place for students to play and learn in a more physical type of space in a virtual environment. For those of you brand new to drawings and kind of trying to figure out this whole G Suite navigation thing, the easy way to start a new drawing is, of course, by just starting at your Google Drive and clicking on that New button. And then you can choose down under More. That's where they put Google Drawings, of course. And currently there's not a template library associated with Google Drawings. It'll launch you out into a new canvas. And if you use a Chromebook or you like to add apps to your browser, you can add Google Drawings as an app from the Chrome Web Store. And I typically just go to drawings.google.com and it'll launch up there for me. All right. So if you want to play along, which of course is always fun to do, you can just go here and just have a new drawing out, new, more Google Drawings. And you can just play along on your canvas while we are kind of going through some of the features. So what are some of the features that we can enjoy with drawings? First and foremost, as you can see when I launched that new one, and I'll be jumping back and forth between the slides and the actual Google Drawings platform, you start with a completely blank slate. It's that empty canvas. It's got a blank background. And what you might notice is that you can customize your canvas size to be anything. And that's one of the reasons why Drawings is so versatile. If you actually drag the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little grabber. It looks like a triangle. You can change the dimensions of your canvas simply by clicking and dragging that. Now, if you want more specific control over what the exact dimensions are, that's where you head to the page setup of the canvas. So File, Page Setup. And for designers, you can get very customized in terms of the exact dimensions and even into things like pixels. So if your students are doing media design or graphic design and they need a certain set of points or pixels to meet their criteria, they can set that up here. You can also do inches and centimeters as well. Now, we'll talk about ways to use this for graphics, like to make a custom header for your Google Classroom or for your website, and that's where this type of thing would come into play. You can also set it to like a screen size standard or a wide screen, depending on what you're designing. And then you just click apply and it'll stay that way. But it is responsive based on that. Bottom, you can also see there are rulers along the top. So if you are looking at inches, this is actually showing you, let me drag again, going in to the inches there along the top. All right, so it's customizable in terms of the size. It's really easy to create in this space. If you have been to exploring any of the other Googly sessions and you've learned about some of the toolbars that we've used in Google Slides, for example, you're going to see a lot of the similar icons here. You're going to see add your image, add a text box, add shapes. And you're going to see these familiar menus that you're used to, your lines, even your scribble line, which lets you kind of freehand your scribbles, and your insert menu. We've looked at these across the board in Google Apps sessions, and they try to keep the menus consistent. If you are a slides user, you're going to see almost the exact same thing here in this space. And at the end of today's session, I have this really nice breakdown of similarities and differences between Google Slides and Google Drawings, because you will start to notice they're quite similar in the things that they can do and the things that you can design, but there are some key differences. So where you can create drawings, of course, right on the web through the Drawings app, or you can even create them through different other Google apps. So you can insert a drawing right from within Docs, right from within Sheets and Slides. And if you are a Google Classroom user, you can also create a drawing from there and attach it as content that you want your students to interact with, or students can create a drawing as part of their Google Classroom submission for work. So that is integrated into the classroom space as well. There are a ton of templates that educators have shared and are willing to allow you to copy and use for your own, or you can just design from scratch. And Google Drawings does have the ability to make objects and images and text interactive through hyperlinking. And if you've been in any of my other sessions, I like to share that keyboard shortcut for linking, which is Control K, or if you're on a Mac, it's Command K, and that just makes business as usual a little bit easier when you're linking around. Of course, as part of G Suite, you can design collaboratively, so you can add co-creators to your drawings file, and you can build together, or students could build something together. And Google Drawings does have version history. Let me go to one that I was toying around with. So here is a drawing that is very exciting. But if you go to File menu and then your version history, just like the other, when we looked at Docs and Slides, if you click on See Version History, this takes you through the life of the document, and you can see back when I started it yesterday, then I added that dime, and when you hit those arrows, you can go back and see the life of the document. That's kind of cool for if you're asking students to design a visual representation of their thinking at certain points. They might be sketchnoting or adding text around different things that they're learning and organizing it in a certain way. And you can really go back in time and see the life of their thinking quite visibly, which is cool. So that's in the version history. We're going to talk about ways to share drawings as well. Sometimes that's a little tricky. So here are some of the insert menu items and the things that you can add to Google Drawings. We, of course, have shapes, word art, and remember, this acts like an object, not like a text box that you can click inside. So we'll look at that. Images, this is a popular use if you want to bring in an image and have students label it or annotate it. And also you can insert charts, and those charts can be built right there in the drawing, or they can sync to a Google Sheet that has data saved in it. And when the chart is up, when the sheet is updated, it will then reflect in this chart. So sometimes students create like a final version of their research findings, for example, and they'll link a chart to sheet data that they have. So that's pretty much what the platform looks like. And if you're thinking in your own head, like, so how is this different than Google Slides? What you'll notice is that the canvas here is a one and done canvas. There's no opportunity for me to add a second page or a third page. So it's one canvas that you're working with. It's nice because sometimes teachers will share out manipulative work, and we'll look at that, but you have this nice, oops, my mouse goes crazy sometimes. You have this nice gray space all around that you can use as the workspace. So we'll take a look at some examples of that. Formatting tools. When you have an object highlighted or selected on your canvas, you're going to see that toolbar kind of shift and change depending on what you're manipulating. Sometimes that frustrates people until they get used to it. But here let me go back to my little guy here. Here you can see I really don't have a whole lot of tools going on, no little buttons, but once I select an object, now all of my tools have popped up. And just like in slides, we looked at that format options. And if you've not checked that out yet, these are all of the additional formatting options for objects. You can rotate it, you can set a specific size, you can position it on the canvas in an exact location. You can check out your recoloring options, make adjustments to things like transparency and how the contrast and brightness are set up. And you can also now add drop shadows and reflections. So you can make some pretty interesting looking creations with some of those format options. Here are, and like I said, remember, word art is treated like an object, not like a text box. So I can't double click in here and make text changes, but once I double click my word art, that's when I get the box to make changes. And once I manipulate that, I can change the font. I can do all the kind of coloring shades. And don't forget, when you click on the colors for things in Google now, there are solid colors, but right next to it, there's gradient fills as well. So you might be getting really clever here. I want to see your creations when you're done. Gradient is nice too. Now, this background of the canvas, if I right click anywhere on that empty space, I get a background option and I can change the coloring. Sometimes teachers want to use this as an interactive whiteboard, for example, so they might change it white. They might be making something spectacular that they need a gradient fill for. Sometimes we're building things like HYPERDOCS in here and we want it to look interesting. So right click, background, all these options come up here, okay? So let's do text box options. This is a text box. And now I see those familiar text formatting tools. I can do my centering and my spacing in the box. I can do bullets. I can do numbers, highlight the text, all that kind of good stuff. And of course, change the font that I want it to be and the size. So that is the difference. If I'd want to change that word art box, I would simply grab those corners and those side boxes to do my resizing. And that is something you'll become familiar with as you start manipulating. And always grab from the corners unless you want to smoosh your object. You don't want to smoosh it. So try to resize with the corners. All right, so the formatting features will change depending on what you have highlighted and selected. Image options. This menu should look very familiar if you've used any of the other Google tools, but when you add an image, you can upload from the computer if you have images saved that you've used in the past. You can search the web for images. You can go into your Drive or your Google Photos, or you can take an image out of your camera. Now, I saw an example of students who were using drawings to compile some of their work. So if I'm saying I want to add an image from my camera, let me grab like something to show you. Who knows what I have around this desk? Pretending I'm a school image. Okay, so image, camera. So you're saying to the kids, I want you to document your work. So they pull it up. Look what I did. It's so good. Yeah. Now they do a better picture, and then you can click insert. So they're starting to essentially build a portfolio. Quick tip with cropping: if you double click, you can grab the little crop sides, and crop my face off, which is helpful. So all that kind of stuff can come right out of the webcam from the image menu, camera. Search the web will bring up a sidebar where you can search for images here. Now, if you've been in any of my other Googly sessions, you know that I do recommend the use of the Explore tool, which we'll talk about next. And the reason is because the Explore tool has some extra features in there in terms of citation building and just linking to the original images. So the Explore tool is found in drawings as well, and you can search the web, you can search for images, and you can search through your Google Drive based on a keyword search. So to find that picture of the dime, which I was looking to do some interactive work with, I searched for the keywords dime, and then I typed PNG afterwards, because a lot of times if you are looking for transparent files, which we are in Google Drawings work, because we don't necessarily want it to have that kind of messy white background or any other color background. We want it to be clean when kids are dragging and dropping. We want it to be clean when they are manipulating things. Like, I would probably take off that reflection. I'm also going to go back to white here. This is too exciting for me. Okay, so here, and who remembers, add it in the chat, who remembers the quick keyboard shortcut for instead of doing a copy paste, what can I do to immediately duplicate that dime? I can do Control D. Who knew it? Who knew it? Somebody did. Control V. Oh, yeah, good try, Seth. Control V is a copy. If I do the copy first, Control C, and then I do Control V, that is paste. But I don't have that kind of time. I just want to do a duplicate. Command D. Look at that. Makes your life so much easier. So Control D is the best. That's right, Joseph. Thank you for that. I would hope that you would know, because you're my top fan here at the BCIU sessions. So I even forget where I was going with that and what I'm showing you because of how exciting that is. Oh, for the tools. So tools, Explore. Here's my Explore menu. Now I'm going to search for giraffe options. Well, maybe I'll stick with my money theme. So I'm going to search quarter PNG, and it does give you some web results that you can use. Now, unlike Google Docs, I don't have my citation generator here, which is kind of a bummer. But here are my images, and these have been filtered for copyright friendly use. So these have all been determined to be either from the public domain or Creative Commons friendly. So this is from Wikimedia. When you use the Explore tool, you can find that source in the top left. So you can go right to the source and you can find the license. So this is copyright free. And so I can do whatever I want. I don't have to cite it or anything like that. So I can click insert. I'm not sold on that. Okay, good. So that's nice. So now I have a bunch of quarters for my kids to do stuff too. All right. So Explore, and then I can go in my Drive if I have anything about quarters in there. So always use that trick if you're looking for transparent images. Now, sometimes you need a specific image, and sometimes you're not really able to find what you need that doesn't have a background. So check out this tool. This is actually a really fun tool. It's called remove.bg, and it will remove any image background for free. You drag and drop the image into, it's a separate website, you drag and drop the image into that space, and it will remove the image background. So I don't really know what I have going on here with any kind of fun images, probably just work nonsense. If I had like a pic of my kids or something, it's kind of fun because it will, oh, well, that's a classic, that's a throwback Christmas one. You want to look for something that's like really obvious. Let me just find like a Google Slides icon. Some of these might have an image behind it. Oh, some of them are probably not good. Sure, let me find, let's just do this. Giraffe. I want to take this guy and I'm going to save it, but I want to take that background out because I want to do something really cool with it. So I'm just going to drag and drop. So cool. Now I just have his head. So now I can download that. And then I can bring it into my Google Drawings. So if kids are designing something, now they have a background-free giraffe. It's so great. So definitely check out that tool. Love that tool. All right. So in terms of sharing and saving, you have a few options with drawings. You can download the drawing as a PDF. And if you have any kind of interactive links, like if your kids are creating an interactive poster or an infographic or something, and they need to maintain their links, it has to happen through a PDF download, or if you share it through the preview trick, which I'm going to show you. You can also download the drawings file as images. So JPEGs, PNG, or for your students who are doing more sophisticated design, they can be saved as scalable vector graphics. But if you do that, you're going to, the image downloads don't maintain any kind of hyperlinks that you included. So that's why, for the most part, people are sharing them when they have interactive links as PDFs or with the preview trick. So this is a trick shared by Tony Vincent, which will actually allow you to share a direct download of a PDF version of your Google Drawings file, and it'll automatically export as a PDF. Because sometimes when you share just the link and somebody clicks on it, it will automatically download to their computer as an image file, and then it won't have the interactive links that you put in there. So what I mean by the preview trick is that if you're in any kind of Google file, you have the words edit at the end, the word edit at the end of the URL. Let me move this up so you can see. And what that means is that you're viewing kind of the edited file version of it. And you can share it like this with other people, and it will show them the document based on your sharing settings. So right now, I have the sharing settings set to anyone with the link. Now, if I go ahead and I take this and I change it, the last word from edit to preview, and I hit enter, now what kids are essentially seeing, or what visitors are seeing, they're seeing my drawings in a web-based kind of preview mode, and the links stay active. So each of these dimes was linked. Here's the link to the actual drawing that we shared. But they could still click on stuff and go to the links that I had set up. So that's the preview trick. Change the word edit to /preview instead and share it that way to maintain your interactive links. You can also publish them to the web. You can also embed them into websites. So I put links to tutorials for that in this space in case you need to know how to do that. So let's talk about ways to integrate drawings and ideas for use across some content areas. One idea that I mentioned earlier is to use drawings for annotations. So if you teach social studies or science or tech ed, this is an example of a teacher who made a Google Hangouts tutorial for her staff. I think she's actually a tech coach. And she screen captured the platform and then added little chat bubbles all around to illustrate, what teachers are seeing when they're in that space. Here's an example of a teacher who brought in a map as an image and then showed different pathways and different borders and crossroads of things that the students were studying in that era. And then also talked about had two different maps there. You can fill up that whole canvas with as much as you want and add text over top, overlay drawings, overlay lines. So it's really great idea to do annotations with Google Drawings. For flowchart work, diagramming, you could, of course, build your own flowchart or diagram with the shapes and the lines that are built in. Or you could take advantage of the diagrams from the insert menu. That is a recent addition. Insert diagram will bring up the menu and of the different categories of diagrams that are out there. So if students were building a relationship cycle or a process chart of something about the giraffe, they could decide how many steps are in the process. They can pick a color that best meets their needs, and then they can just click to add, and it will go right into the drawing. And then, of course, these are placeholder text items, so they could write. So see how much more fun this is than, I guess we'd call it diet, than like writing out something else. What else would we need to learn about it? There's social patterns, and then fun facts. So they can do all of that changing there. Double click. And don't forget, with shapes, you have this ability to draw whatever it is you need, set your thickness, set your line, set your fill color. And let me duplicate some of those, because if I want to join them as a web, when I go to use my lines, what happens when I click line and then I go over to my shape, see the little purple dots that pop up? Those are my connector areas, and I can now drag, I don't know why those are so thick. I can go drag and drop my line in place, so that it's a nice, neat little flowchart. Boop, boop. Kind of looks like a number bond there. So don't forget about that. You can build it yourself, or you can pull from the diagram space. And for organizing learning in a more kind of creative outlet, you could use drawings for things like vision boards or virtual pin boards. So there's an example of students taking collaborative notes in Post-it form, and the teacher created like a little bulletin board there. Especially now, I think some teachers are investigating the use of virtual boards, things like Padlet. There are certain restrictions on how many of those you can use, so this is a simple alternative to that. This was an example from a company, but I really liked it, a vision board where the teacher included this image as a background for the Google drawing, and then the user can drag and drop little sticky notes over to the side. This is great for planning, for preparation. You could do something really similar to this, especially if you're using common graphic organizers with your students that they're already familiar with. And then all of these things that are located on the sidebar are little icons that you can drag and drop. And we talked about that being one of the advantages of drawings, is that I can put stuff out here. I can put these dimes out here. And I obviously linked to that. That's why things keep popping up. But I can put all these things out here so that students can use them to solve problems, and I can keep my white space really clean. And then they can, oops, sometimes it takes some practice to grab only the things you want to grab. And I typically just slide my mouse over them to grab them. So you can keep this nice white space, and then when they need the item, they can just drag it over. If they need to show their work, they can do it with the scribble pen, or they can do it with, you know, whatever it is they're doing, if they want to type it out in the text box, and such. So I can model all of that, and I don't have to mess up my space. I can keep everything on the sidebar there. Let's check out some options for interactive creations. I've seen teachers get very clever with things like recreating board games in digital formats. This is one that I've used in PD before. It's a tic-tac-toe board. So I asked the teachers I was working with to try to get tic-tac-toe by doing 3 of these things, and trying to line it up. They can share it with a partner and compete, try to block each other. Here's an interactive report, quote unquote, about the dog's senses that an educator created, brought in this image of the dog, put interactive little icons around it to learn more about the dog. You simply click on that item and it will take you out to something else informational. So it's like a thing link. If you've ever created one of those, you can go in and kind of see what she's linked to. So asking kids to show what they know in that kind of format versus like a written report. And then creating an interactive whiteboard, change the canvas to white, have kids bring things into it or draw on top of it to create a virtual whiteboard experience. So for literacy, I tried to include lots of examples of templates that are out there and ideas for how students are using Google Drawings to support design and literacy concepts, whether it's writing and they add their text and then they illustrate it, starting out in a really simple format. There are foldable book templates if you want students to write a book and then be able to like print it at some point and build it into a foldable book. Of course, I will reference the work of Eric Kurtz throughout this hour because he does things like create 50 templates for Google Drawings and how to use them. So whenever you see his name, it's got to be something good involved. He shares all these examples of templates as well as any kind of webinars that he's done. He's just such a great creator and resource. So he's built a bunch there, having students create memes in Google Drawings, teaching text structures with Google Drawings. This is a great resource. I believe Jolie Boucher created this. This slide set has all of these ideas. Sorry, Tina Sabatello created that for different Google Drawings across the content areas. So showing how to build, you know, here's a drawing that shows a description understanding, sequencing. Here's another idea for sequencing with actual photos of things, cause and effect, problem and solution, compare, contrast. These are all built from spaces that can be recreated in Google Drawings. And here you see that example of the workspace, just with a Venn diagram with 2 transparent circles overlapped. Now students can drag and drop actual examples of metals, non-metals, and the ones in between, the metalloids that have both. And here's the before and after kind of picture. So there's examples of that there. Let me see, where does he share them? So Dottie, I put the link to my slides. Let me just add that again. I think I called it Drawings, IU 14. Everything that he has shared has put in I put in here in my slides. So if Eric has shared something around drawings, I linked right here for you for that. So you can use my slides as a resource to get to his stuff, or you can always just Google his name. If you Google Eric Kurtz and then Google drawings, you'll see lots of stuff come up. But I would start with the stuff that I have in my slides just for ease of use. Here's some examples of comic strip creation. This is actually a great example of digital design with a platform other than something like Google Docs. And we've talked about Google Docs in the past being a little bit tricky to set up things like graphics in certain places, and to have columns that you like. Now you can see there's a ton of stuff that she designed in this resume, and she did this in Google Drawings because she wanted complete control over how everything looked. She wanted to add more images, which is pretty cool. So that's an kind of outside the box thinking of that. Even some virtual manipulatives work in literacy, things like dragging and dropping a vowel or consonant sort. This is a sorting activity where students have to, vowels or consonants, and they drag, and then on the second side, they create words from what they have. And this is a magnetic poetry activity. And these vary by the season. I've seen them created by lots of people. Casey Bell has created them. Of course, Eric has created them. These are all tiny little images of words that the kids can drag into the design space and build stories. And so that's an exciting thing. If you are familiar with book snaps, which are like recreations of Snapchat posts, but not actually in Snapchat, where students show what they've learned. This is a video all about book snaps. You can see what one looks like here. Kids snap a picture of the text, and then they add images or media over top to say, like, this part of the book really meant a lot to me, or this part of the book really surprised me. So they're doing book review work and kind of critical thinking around books, but they are snapping images of it, bringing it into a platform where they can design, like Google Drawings, and then they are commenting and adding stuff around that. In social studies, we get back to some of our mapping and annotation uses, of course, and this one I thought was really cool. They tied in a see, think, and wonder activity into the actual picture of that portrait. So step one, identify 3 important figures from the image. So students would have to go in, they could either point or highlight or draw a box around people. What do you see? What do you think? And what does this picture make you wonder? And the students can do that whole activity right in this one canvas because you can mix media so easily. Have more map labeling examples. You could build timelines, and there are some templates here and here that were shared. And one way we're seeing students show what they know is through infographics creation. So, you can set up the platform to be whatever size you need it to be. Lots of times infographics are like thinner and longer. And these 2 resources have some examples for you to see how you can create eye-popping infographics with Google Drawings. Matt Miller from Ditch That Textbook, he's another great resource for drawings. And then here's one where students are pre-organizing their work around a state or country research report. So they know that they have to represent these types of facts in their report. So this is an organizer. And this is another way, as students are learning about different biomes or ecosystems, they have to kind of take notes on what they learned in these 4 categories. So in this example, it's an elementary example, kids are bringing in pictures and then they are writing little summaries of what they learned in those spaces. For the sciences, there are some opportunities for using drawings for diagramming, for labeling cycles and processes. This is an example of students using drawings to virtually show with batteries and wire images, how series circuits and parallel circuits are wired. So they're demonstrating their understanding that way. This is a flow chart of the setup for a lab, showing what each solution is in the beakers and then how to make this whole thing go, which is pretty great. And here's a typical cycle that kids might create. This, again, this was assigned to students, and the teacher was able to put her directions right on the left-hand side so that students have them right there when they're building, which is really nice. You just put that in a text box. Okay, so there's actually a whole other resource I found with, if you're a science teacher, ways to bring in drawings creatively into your science classroom. And this was more of a creative endeavor, creating NASA planet posters using drawings. In mathematics, you can rely on those manipulatives to help kids bring meaning to their math work. Things like sorting for some geometry work. This is another example from Eric Kurtz. He's created some lines of symmetry activities, angles. There is a nice, clean protractor that's out there that you could bring in a real world image here, something that you want kids to measure the angles of, and then they could just drag and drop this protractor on top. And this is a template that Eric made. You can file, make a copy, any of those templates that he has shared. And once you do file, make a copy, then you have a clean copy that you are the owner of in your own drive. So you can bring your image in, and then you can see how this all can get dragged. Now, he also said to rotate the protractor, click and drag the blue. If they need to line this up properly, this is how they'll learn to do that. So he put that right there, which is really helpful for you. Lots of problem solving spaces where students are given some manipulatives for multiplication, for money management. Here's like a little storefront, and the questions are, Mary bought a teddy bear, what was her change, blah, blah, blah. So you can make these little interactive word problem spaces there. I loved this creation. This is from Sarah Kale, who works in the Wilson School District and is a Google trainer. But this recreates what students might do in a Monday morning or a morning circle time, where we go through our math, or how many days we've been in school and how many hundreds, tens, and ones with the hundreds blocks, and they can tally mark it and do their calendar work. So that's a very friendly interface for the littles. Here's some algebra tiles from Alice Keeler, a fraction flag. I've seen a lot of things geometry wise just work really well in this space. Here's a sample coordinate plane. Another problem solving with caterpillars. And they even put some math symbols here for equations work, so the students can drag over the caterpillars and the leaves and make that work. Now that's an example of where I would have found a transparent leaf instead of with the white background. And here's some fractions manipulatives if you want students to go through that type of work. We did talk about with math the ability to add charts to a drawing and then either build it directly in the drawing or associate it with a data set that already exists in a Google Sheet. So I put more of that information here so you can see that. And then two other examples, the pattern blocks, fractions ideas from Eric, and also this one I thought was kind of clever. It's adding integers. And because it's difficult sometimes for students to conceptualize what it means when you start to deal with negative numbers and how that relates to adding to positive numbers, when you slide the yellows and the reds on top of each other, they make orange. And so this helps students see what you're essentially left with, because if you bring over 5 reds with the 3 negatives, with the 8 positives, then you kind of see what remains. So that's one option for teaching students with the color coding and the transparent features that you can add to the objects in drawings. I mean, it's crazy what these creators think of. So the last couple of things I have to share are on the creative elements, the creative side, where just kind of some outside of the box things or things that you might use for your own classroom virtually. One is to use Google Drawings to design custom banners. So if you want to make a custom Google Classroom theme, you can do that. EdTech team created a template that you can use. So they already designed the dimensions for that template. And then you can add your own Bitmoji or your own picture or favorite images that you have or your school mascot. And then you can title it whatever you want. I didn't get a chance to add this to the presentation today, but I saw that teachers are using drawings to make their own virtual Zoom backgrounds, and their Zoom backgrounds or their Google Meet backgrounds, well, actually you can't do that in Google Meet, their Zoom backgrounds look like a cartoonish version of their classroom, which is kind of cool. So they're putting themselves in their virtual classroom. Creating things like icons and images and logos. These are all things that you can do very easily. This was just a fun, we had to make a poster of our summer activities with a partner, and that's what we were doing there. But you can see you can bring all these things in, and creating badges. If you are rewarding your students for their work via badging, it's a really easy place to build badges. You can insert GIFs into Google Drawings to spice things up if you need to. And so I listed a number of creative projects here. If your students are 3D printing, or if they will be when you return back, lots of schools are using Google Drawings as a pre-design step to design that 3D printing project before they take it into their specific 3D printing software. So they're using that as like a first design step if needed. So the question is, what would this session to be able to do the background for Google Meet backgrounds? We were not allowed to have a camera on. Yeah. So for a Google Meet background, I don't know enough about Google Meet background. Can you have one? If you're not allowed to have your camera on, I think it just shows your profile photo. So I guess you'd have to kind of design it to be the profile photo that you update, although that's a good question. I'd have to turn to Danny for that. I really don't use Google Meet very much. Because it would, you're right, it would be nice for them to see something other than just like your name, blank name, or a black space. I did want to mention HYPERDOCS for drawings. With drawings, we have done a whole session on HYPERDOCS, and it did include a couple activities that were created in Google Drawings. Here are two examples. What I like about this is that here is a whole package of an activities around creating line plots with fractional data. And again, because you can build out to the side, the teacher has listed step 1, explore, watch this video. Step 2, engage, create a recording with Vocaroo, create, share, self-assess. So it's an entire packaged activity with white space for working. She put the objective, the standard here, and then the directions for the activity here. And once they go through and complete all of that, that's their finished work. Here's an example of it's a template, it's an empty template, and students or teachers can design different activities for kids around this grid, and it has instructions on the side for teachers and takeaways. So you can add a reflective space for students. Jolie Boucher did a whole session on how to create HYPERDOCS using Google Drawings, and she called them hyper drawings because let's give everything a name now that is cool. So that has lots more activities there, and of course you can watch our on-demand HYPERDOCS session as well. Now, this was a new discovery to me. I had never heard of these before, but if you have learners who are just getting used to this whole idea of Google Drawings and you want to give them some practice based on the tools that are built in, Tony Vincent has created this thing called shapegrams. And What it is a design challenge where students are asked to replicate pictures and get to notice things about visual observation. They learn more about spatial awareness and critical thinking. So the question is, here's the house. How are you going to recreate it to look exactly like this? So in some ways, it reminds me of tangram work, where they have to figure out which shapes go together in what ways. And it says residential homes typically have sloped roofs, while businesses have flat roofs. So do an internet search to find out why and type what you learned. So there's some kind of extension involved as well. He offers 4 of them for free. And he does have, I didn't even click on pricing. This is something that he offers, but they're just some really cool looking things that kids can try, which I think is fun. I never saw that before. So those are shapegrams. No, it did say, Joseph, that you're not supposed to duplicate the original because it says right there, that's cheating. But I'm glad you learned your Control-D shortcut. Now, this is something that I added as an extra feature for you. It is an additional site. It's not part of Google Drawings, but it is a great service. So it's called Auto Draw. I've shown this a couple places, maybe in my slides deck. Now look at this beautiful flower I drew. Are you so impressed with me? Well, I didn't draw that, unfortunately. This is what happens when you draw with Auto Draw. I'm going to try to make a flower. And it, this is fine. It's not the world's greatest flower, but now that I started drawing, up at the top, you can see Google or Auto Draw, which is an AI experiment, another Google experiment, has tried to figure out what I am drawing and offering alternatives. So could it be a flower? Could it be a windmill? I don't know. But this is a much cleaner, much more beautiful version of what I was attempting to draw. And now I can make it my own with different fill colors. And if I'm using this in a lesson, or if I'm using this for just design work, now I have this very beautiful flower that I can use. You can add text to it. You can freehand draw without Auto Draw suggesting things to you. And then for downloading purposes, you can download it and it will come as a PNG file. And now you can drag that right into your drawing. So let me go to my blank drawing, one of them. And I have that here. Now you can also do a transparent background on those. And if you can't, I'm pretty sure you can. I thought it did actually. But if I couldn't do that, I would just drag it to my remove.bg option. Yeah, I wonder why it's not transparent. I thought it was. Okay, so that's Auto Draw. And then the other tool I have to share with you, if you want more sophisticated control over your drawings, is Chrome Canvas. So this is another free app that's just web-based, and you can click on the link. It's canvas.apps.chrome. It lives on the web, and it's been saving some of my work that I've been doing because I'm logged into my Google account. You can create a new from image. So this is another option for annotating. If you bring an image in, this could get fun, and create a new canvas, it'll then bring up your canvas tools. And I can do things. There's chalk, there are markers, there are fountain pens and pencils. I'm not sure I really want to mess with him, but because he's so cute. I can put a bow on him. Let me do a marker. I guess I'll put a bow here. This is when you wish for Auto Draw. It's a little slower than usual, and I think that's because I brought in an image. You could do a lot of things with this. Now that I'm thinking about it. Do you like how I'm amusing myself? I should have picked some Star Wars stuff for May 4th. I'm upset. Now if I click on home, now you can even add layers. So this can be more sophisticated than you think. There's layering, and now I can save it as an image. and now I can bring that image back into my final Google Drawings work. If you start just from a blank slate, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a blank slate. You still have your same tools here that you can draw with. Here's the chalk. So you just get some different textures and things that you might not get when you're working directly inside the Google Drawings platform. But you can save that as an image and you can bring it on in. So I always like to share Canvas as well. Now here's that final look at drawings versus slides and what the differences are. As you can see, there are a ton of similarities because whether you use drawings or whether you use slides, you can set transparent backgrounds, have all of those same insert tools, the drawings, the shapes. There's the Explorer tool. There are hyperlinking options. You can use diagramming and flowcharts, and you can download both as images. You can place objects off the sides in both of them, and comments and sharing, and embed codes in both of them. But with drawing specifically, you can drag to adjust the canvas size, and it's only that one canvas. You can adjust the size of a Google Slides slide as well. You just don't have the dragging option that you have in drawings. And in slides, you get the multiple pages to design with. You can insert drawings directly in the other Google apps, and you can't do that with slides. Slides has transitions and animations. You can embed drawings as images, which you cannot do with slides. So those are the main differences. But as you're thinking through, should I use drawings, should I use slides, it's really a toss-up. It really depends on what you want to do with it. I'd recommend slides for kind of multi-step things. If students are asked to complete maybe 3 problems in a row and you want to build out that, it's probably easier to do that than if it's just a single thing. But otherwise, drawings is a perfectly wonderful, functional, fun space to check out. So I want to say thanks for joining me today, and I'm going to open up the mic for questions and answers, but don't forget to complete the feedback form, bit.ly/cc virtual feedback if you need it or have any questions. And I'm really happy that you came for me today. There's 2 other slides with just some extra resources of teachers sharing their ideas for how to use slides or drawings. And also Google Drawings was featured on a recent EDU in 90 episode from the Google for Education team. So I added that video here as well. And then these are just all the ways to use things. It's amazing, all the things that you can do. So thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to reach out if you have questions, and I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to open up Q&A. Thanks for coming.